or afternoon. I don't know where people are in the world, but we got a lot to talk about. You
Mhm.
know, we were thinking about, kind of going through and dealing with some different themes and stuff like that. But there's a lot going on that I think we need to be thinking about, specifically people of color, very specifically African Americans.
Mhm.
Um, so one, there's some concerns around the reopening of different states. Different states are reopening, and there's really no continuity. You got folks that are shut down. You got folks that are, opening as soon as Friday.
Yeah.
And I think we should have a conversation about this. And the first thing I want to talk about that really got me a little warm. I'm looking a little crazy. I've been in my garden today. I needed to go get in my garden because people were making me mad. But one of the things that struck me, in the state of Georgia, specifically, and the state of Georgia, the governor, this is the same individual that somehow didn't know, even though the rest of the entire world knew, that people were able to infect people having, be having no symptoms, asymptomatic. But somehow he didn't know that. Just like there's still folks, in the middle of the country that aren't doing anything. They literally aren't doing anything. I know there was an outbreak at a pork industry something, and they had the largest number of folks that were infected in one place. But again, they had no shelter in place. Nothing was there. So now I want us to unpack very, very clearly what the governor is doing in the state of Georgia. So he's deciding that on Friday, and let me just name the places that he's going to open so that we can, everybody that's on this call, everybody that's listening, I want you to pay attention and tell me what sticks out for you about the places he's opening. Nail salons, hair salons,
Mhm.
tattoo parlors, bowling alleys. Now, let's just unpack that for a minute. This is a person, of course, who did not know that asymptomatic people could transmit the disease or the virus. So now we're deciding to open up because we believe, apparently he believes, that it's safe to do so.
Right.
But let's look at those places he's opening up and who frequents them. I'm gonna let you just sit there with you for a moment, and I want you to think in your mind the majority of folks around the country. It's almost cliche now when you start looking at nail salons. Who do you see inside? Who do you
Right.
see doing the nails, and who do you see getting their nails done? This is
Exactly.
just broad sweep across America.
Right.
So
Black
you
people
look.
going there, Latinos going to get their nails done, and Asians doing the nails primarily. So you're basically testing out your reopening series, see if it's safe by putting us in the front lines. And then if we all die, then it's not it's not a huge loss, right? Because
Right.
now it's not safe. We know that the people of color have gone down, so now it's safe,
Right.
it's not safe for
And,
the rest.
and again, and
Yeah.
what I want to do is to say, shame on us if we can't figure that out. Okay,
Well, but
shame on
it's
us
not just
if we
that
can't
shame
figure
on
that
us.
out.
But part of it is not just shame on us. Part of it is people who go, I wouldn't have closed even if the government hadn't made me, because if I don't work, I don't eat. So what happens is now you're forcing somebody to say, okay, now you're not going to get any more public assistance or any more benefits because you could be working because we said it's all clear for you. So now you're going to put people in a position where they are forced to have to work because they won't get the services, they won't get the food, they won't get anything else. And then you're forcing them to be unhealthy and forcing them to be in a space. Because I'm like, why are they not opening up the bars? Why are they not opening up restaurants, country clubs? They're not. None of that's opening.
Nope.
Because anywhere that some important, valuable people might be, we're not going to put them at risk.
Right.
But
And again, we have to pay attention to this because again, that's why we're doing Facebook Live. This is, like, not my can of worms. Everybody knows me, but I'm saying whatever I can do at this point to reach out to the masses of people who are going to be harmed by this.
yeah,
I
No.
don't know whether, I know we got a lot of conspiracy theories floating around. Friends, let's be very clear about this. There's no ambiguity here. There's no confusion about who is being targeted here. And if people die, there's no confusion who those folks are going to be. And
Mhm.
I'm saying, but we have to exercise. We have to exercise some level of restraint, reasoning, and education in our communities. That
Mhm.
when and at what point can you trust these individuals about your own health? Let's get before COVID.
Right. But
There were
also,
no
what can you do though? What can you do? Like, I think part of it is also what can we? I know today I was on a call with 4 other organizations that are primarily targeting people of color: Asian Pacific American focus, immigrant refugee focus, Latino focus, and we're trying to figure out how to come together, even to talk to our governor, because they're talking about child care centers and folks that are going to start to be opening up initially, massage, all this kind of places that folks like us work. How are we going to band together to say, especially now that they're going to say that, oh, the resources that are supposed to be allocated to our communities are now in jeopardy, and divest from us, as they always do when they say they need to support other and most critical, so we're going to be getting hit on both sides. So I'm like, how do we get our collective power together to start to be able to say, we're not going to stand for, number one, we know what you're doing, we're aware, and we're going to make you look bad at the very least for what you're doing. And then at the very best, we're going to band together and push some legislation that's going to not allow you to continue to do this.
And I think the other piece that we have to look at around this is, the legal ramifications. If the governor is flinging up open the gates and saying, we think it's okay, and we're opening this. If someone gets sick, can we then now sue the governor? I
No,
mean,
because
can we file suit that you place
social
people in
distancing.
harm's way?
You're supposed to do social distancing, even though you're a hair salon. That's why.
And
Yeah.
again, because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna say it's okay for you to go to hair salon, nail parlors, tattoo parlors, all of these places, and bowling range, right? It's okay for you to do all that. But if something happens, again, remember, we're all sheltering in place. This is happening on the state level all over the United States. So then, do I trust that I am not going to be placing myself in harm's way? And if for any reason I fall ill, who do I
Right.
get to sue at that point? And maybe
Right.
we need to get some folks, some attorneys on the line. We need to talk to attorneys about when my governor opens this up, not
Right.
just for me, Joy, going in to get anything done, but the people that have to work in those environments.
Exactly.
I'm trusting that this is true, and am I putting myself in harm's way? And if someone does end up, if this does spike the number of folks that are infected, do I
Right.
have a legal recourse here? I mean,
Right.
again, I'm saying whether or not you have a legal recourse or not, I'm not showing up there. This is a real easy for
Right.
me. Wait and see. I'm not getting ready
Yeah,
to
there's a whole
be.
bunch of memes. There's a whole bunch of memes. I saw a meme today that had a picture of Celie with her hands like this that said, "Me watching you all test it out first."
That's right. That's
Nobody's
right.
interested in this and going out there and dying. It's not worth it to us.
Mm-mm.
But there are people who, I know that there are several folks that I know, Vietnamese folks that I know who work at nail salons who are telling me they don't have health insurance. They don't have the ability to cover their expenses if they're not working. And that puts the poorest, most vulnerable people at risk. All of us on this call right now are privileged to a certain extent and have access to information. The folks who don't have internet, who don't have the connection, are really unaware in some places. I know in Oregon, we have lots of rural areas where people don't have any internet. They have to drive into town to the nearest like a restaurant or a Starbucks or something to try to get some free Wi-Fi to figure out what's even happening. So,
Exactly.
how are we?
And I'm seeing people are sending notes, and again, they're saying the same thing. Don't believe the hype. Take care of yourself. Wait and see. Everybody is kind of on that tip, but what we have to do is, again, there are folks who are getting their information from a variety of different sources, and
Right.
some people believe, well, if the government says it's okay,
Right.
then it's okay. right? But I'm going to go, what is our history in terms of the
Don't
government
trust
saying
it.
things are okay?
Don't trust it. Yeah.
You can't trust it. And at the same time, for those folks, like I said, we talked about this last week. Who's the one that's driving the buses? Who are the ones that are on the front line of all of this? You folks who don't have insurance and people who can't afford to not work and all of these things. And
Right.
now we're gonna sit up and make you a human sacrifice. I
Well,
was
yeah,
I was
Gabrielle said, there's YouTube videos on hair and nails. I already know. I ordered my little dip set from Amazon.
listen,
I ordered my little dip set from Amazon. I twisted my hair, my daughter's cornrow, the boys' hair. We've been trying to make sure that,
that's right.
things going, because the good thing is this is an age that we have access to information. If we're privileged enough to have access, then we have no business not knowing.
Absolutely.
Right? We know. And tell other people, communicate with other people. Don't trust it. And let's just look at the track record. Let's look at the track record of how informed they want us to be when things are happening, and how likely. I mean, we're talking about the messaging that's coming out here. I was looking the other day, and I never know how to feel about certain information. So, there's this HIV medication that come out that almost everybody in the commercial are Black, right? Now, on one hand, you say, well, maybe if we're dying disproportionately of AIDS, then yes, I can understand why they want to say in our community, they want people to normalize taking medication and getting checked. However, you're also pushing out there this narrative that we're all diseased. So
right.
This is
right.
It's strange, because you're like, want more information. And at the same time, part of the reason why they're not even publicizing how impactful COVID death is in our community is because they don't think people will really care. So it's like, oh, it's just the Negroes and the Latinos that we don't, we're okay. We don't need to, our economy is more important than them.
Right.
And that's why they're opening up the economy on the backs of us, as usual.
So, and here's the other thing that I've seen, and I'm sure lots of people have seen. Now, I remember when, everybody went after the tobacco industry, and they banned commercials. There was no more, the camel guy, none of that. They took down all advertisements. Has anyone noticed lately how that's just flipped because of vaping? So vaping was a way they could get, they can actually go under the radar and say, well, technically this is not a quote tobacco, but it's exactly the same thing. And let's see who they're targeting right about now. Well, first of all, an internal memo said that the tobacco industry says that the folks they're basically targeting are the young, the poor, Blacks, and the stupid.
Right.
Now this is, I don't, I can say, this is on regular TV. Regular TV, they're showing what the tobacco industry is saying who they're targeting. They're targeting the poor, they're targeting young, they're targeting Black people in particular, and the stupid. I mean, I'm like, so for me, I'm like, anybody noticing this? Because I'm saying whichever one of those categories you want to look at, they are basically saying we don't care if you die. Okay, we're targeting you with a product that is known to cause harm. It's known, we have a preponderance of evidence that this is harmful to you. But who are they targeting? Our children, our youth, and Black people. Hello, Black people are on the list. So I have to say, Black people, please take a look at this. Please take a look. I mean, honestly, I don't know how more blatant it could be, and I don't know what more could be said.
But it's romanticized. The thing about it is, and it's really hard right now in this day and age. And I think about, I have teenage children, and the whole idea of critical thinking, right? Critically assessing what information is being given to you is not the first thing that comes to them, right? So it's like a practice you have to put in place, because the society continues to promote negative stuff. I've been talking to them, and I'm thinking about, I'm having these conversations, and I'm not so sure they're saying that they're completely convinced all the time of what I'm saying, but I know people, they're having these conversations at all. I've seen birthday parties of my daughter's friends that are still, there's no social distancing happening. Everybody's not sick. We did a parent group yesterday in collaboration with Chicago Public Schools, around parents trying to navigate the messaging that they're getting and how to explain things to their kids. And then, of course, now they have plenty of time to be on Snapchat and social media and getting all this stuff from all over the place, much of which is really harmful. But I'm thinking that, like, we're trying to figure out new ways to help people become a little bit more critical in what's happening. I think historically, we were very critical about the messages we were given from the government. Historically, we knew they were after us.
Exactly.
But there's this kind of that illusion of inclusion and the illusion of being connected and people valuing us. That is, it's a false narrative. Unfortunately,
it is a false narrative.
It's a false. I mean, again, individually, yes, but when you talk about systemic racism, it is very alive, and it's become a little bit more insidious. But it's right there, you know. And we're not being conscious enough about it.
So focusing on, folks are saying, well, what is the counter narrative to this? What are we saying? I'm saying everybody has a role in this. Everybody, I say it, you all know that about me. You have a lane. Mm-hmm. Get in your lane and educate in your lane. You know, people, like I said, if people know better, they do better. And I'm saying that we need to sit our young people down. Yeah, in the house with them. Sit them down. Right now, let me tell you, I am on so much Zoom.
I just invested in Zoom. Out. I just invested in Zoom.
As well, you should.
I'm
zoomed out. I'm doing a Zoom class, a 5-week class. I'm doing with a group of college, well, not college age, from high school on up, who are having this conversation about what's going on in our world right now. What does it mean to be a Black student right now? The other conversation. So I think the narrative, the way we change the course of things, is we have to first educate folks, which means that we have to have a conversation. And that's why Zoom becomes important, because I'm looking at this, I'm out there in the world in the sense that I'm connecting to groups of people literally all over the world. Right. I'm connecting with folks in India who are a young woman who is applying the work that she's learned in the 10-week course to what's happening in India with the poorest folks, mm-hmm. you know, with the caste system that it doesn't exist, but does, you know, so there's a lot of utility to each of us in whatever lanes we are to begin to send a counter narrative, send a message to the tobacco industry. You have targeted me for harm. You've targeted me for harm. You've said it. Right? I'm not giving you a dime. I'm not giving you a dime to hurt me or to hurt my people. So just remember that when we contribute to that, we are contributing to folks who have voiced to us what they believe. This is not ambiguous. It's not a conspiracy. It's a memo. We're sending this to the people who are stupid enough, poor enough, ignorant enough, and the people we hate. We're telling you that we're going after.
You're motivated by greed and you're motivated by objects, right? And attaining objects. Then of course you're going to think about the smartest way to get there, the smartest path to get there. You know, I think that once somebody said, how do you wake people who are mentally asleep up? And this is two things. One, you know, I know that in our family, we have the tendency, we speak our opinions in some cases like they're fact, and we also speak facts as though you should know what we're talking about. And I think sometimes people can't, we're trying to be more of the feather dusters, but we're really the hammers. So we're trying to learn how to, you know, I know we're hammers, but we're trying.
I'm feeling some kind of way right now.
I know, but
I'm just feeling some kind of way.
The thing is with our people, and the thing, and I, you know, we love our people. We want them to, the urgency comes from our love from our community. However, the community is beaten down. They've been beaten down. And so part of what we have to do is empower people, make people feel like, you know, this is not us knowing you don't know as much as we know and you're dumb if you go that right. It's more like, you know, we just have to find a way, because we're like, get the information, like wake up, get it together.
I'm at revolution time. Okay,
I know.
So I come from another school of thought.
But the revolution,
it's revolution time. And what I mean by that, I'm serious about this. The revolution, but the revolution, like, you know, like my boy said, it ain't gonna be televised. The revolution is when you are equipped and armed with knowledge, when you are armed with a sense of self-sufficiency, when you are armed with a sense of no, I'm not gonna allow you to do this. And what I'm saying is while we're having this conversation, but here, we're boots on the ground in terms of working with our people. I don't have any, matter of fact, I'm getting ready to have a meeting, another Zoom meeting with a bunch of parents who are now feeling, and this is another discussion that we have not had, but these are parents that are going, I don't know how. First of all, I don't even know how to help my kids with the homework they're bringing home. Because trust me, I have a PhD and I'm looking at stuff that my grandkids wanted me to help with the homework. I'm going, I don't know how math could change.
Listen, I
Somehow it's changed.
apologize to the
Right.
teacher, and I can navigate. I had to apologize to the teacher because I was like, I don't know how to submit. Wait, where is the? Wait, you can't log into the Spanish class, and where's the? I mean, and I had to tell her like, and people are doing the best they can, but I'm like, if you don't understand English, and if you are not consistently on the internet, how are you even going to figure it? It's maddening. And then the family, if they don't have them involved in school, first of all, it's like they want to put them in front of the computer and go, do it, and then go away. But I'm like, I was sitting there for hours last night saying, you keep submitting, saying you're done because you wrote it down. The teacher has no idea what you wrote. We have to take a picture, upload it to the Google Classroom. It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
What I'm saying is that what these parents are going to be asking for, and they're already asking for, they're saying, I feel ill-equipped to homeschool, right? I feel ill-equipped. And at the same time, how do I get what do we do? So we need to do some basic fundamentals. Find a space in your home. I don't care if it's a corner where, again, you devote this space and this time to having this engagement with children. Let's say, for example, there is an assignment, and there's an assignment that your child has, you don't understand it. Well, that's the good news also about Zoom. We could Google someone else. We could call on the phone. We could FaceTime someone and say, my son or my daughter has this. Can you help me figure out how to work through this? There's nothing wrong with that. Again, there's an assumption, and here's a digital divide again, making an assumption that people can do this. This is why people send their kids to school. Okay?
Well,
I don't know how to do this.
Sometimes a lot of the kids aren't. My daughter said there's 4 kids in her class of a 30. There are 4 that are doing the virtual class. And she doesn't even show her camera. She's like, I just try to get what the lessons are. But the thing is like, but one of the things that we have to think about is your children don't become less intelligent because they're not in school. They become less intelligent when they're not exercising their brains. So we can find ways, again, they're not gonna be able to flunk these kids. There's no way, because it's too difficult. But we can find a way to help people continue the learning, to continue having kids, count things and read things and report on things and keep that kind of process going. It doesn't require you to have to turn everything in all the time. This is
right.
Extremely stressful.
But I think just even in terms of when you're not in that pressure situation to try to respond, when you're not doing that, we can be working together with parents online to say, here's some things you can do. Here's some things what do you feel comfortable doing with your child? And I think that, on a very basic level, it's like, I told you, I think you left me at the house and I was trying to help with the homework with my grandkids. And I was thinking, I felt in front of myself.
Naomi tries to make me feel bad. She's like, I'm like, get your work done. And she's like, can you do this work? Here's my math, Mom. I'm like, don't be disrespectful.
Yeah, I didn't get to physics. Okay, I didn't get there, but she has. So but my point is that I don't think that people necessarily understand that my husband just came in and blew me a kiss. I'm on Zoom so much, the man probably goes, Lord, I
travel all the time. Hey, I'm on Zoom. They're like, you're always on Zoom. I'm like, get off the internet.
Well, it's not, again, I'm working with organizations. I'm working with families. I'm working with faith-based communities. I'm working, I'm working with everybody because this is what I do, right? I really do feel like we have a responsibility. All of us do. I feel like my responsibility is to share the information, to share the knowledge. And of course, anyone that's watching, you can go to my website, joydegrew.com. I try to upload important, relevant articles. I try to, I'm trying to keep my hands on my community and my community, the beloved community across this country who are under siege. I feel like I need to do whatever I can, and like I said, this is not nothing that I'm not charging any money. I'm not, and all of us are in the very same situation in terms of the country being shut down, right? Of course, I do know how to fish.
Grow
I do know
food.
how to grow food. I feel very good about that. I think everyone should know, and you all know for years I've been saying that. But again, now maybe some folks are waking up and they're realizing, you know what, I'm going to have to figure out Plan B.
Right.
Is
Right.
Plan A, everybody's Plan A is not working right now.
Right.
Everybody's on a
Right.
Plan B.
Well, wait, the side hustles are, this is what I'm saying. So let's just say that you're a nail tech, but you're like, I'm not trying to go and be back to work that way, right? The tutorial world right now is making all kinds of money. People are doing tutorials. I've been taking classes online, all kinds of things that you can do. I feel like right now is the time to really map out some side hustles. Legit side hustles, no street pharmacy.
But I want to get back to revolution.
Okay, back to
And,
revolution.
what I mean by that is, this revolution is a revolution that I think is knowledge. That part of this revolution is knowledge, and we've got to get the knowledge, the information to everyone. Right now, everybody who's paying attention here, you have lines of communication. We need to begin to put the correct information out there. We need to encourage people to stand firm, to not allow themselves to be sucked in by all of this, because this is all about, and let's be clear, I'm not confused that in order for the country to run, there has to be an economy. I'm not confused about that. I got to keep the lights on too. Everybody does, but you don't get to sacrifice my children.
Right.
You don't get to sacrifice my people. You don't get to do that. And the thing that I'm saying is that we have to become revolutionary in the sense that we recognize that we do have power, and our power as consumers, our power is in not consuming. If we don't, again, I'm not getting ready to consume something that's going to cause me harm. You are the consumers that keep the foundation going so that the rich can get richer. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's true. The way it's set up.
Because the thing about it is, and this is the part that I'm trying to balance, right? Because we know that we need revolution. We know that we need people to be fervent in the determination to not succumb to kind of what we're being fed. At the same time, people are so beaten down. It's a hard time to be living. It's a hard time to be Black. So it's like for me,
it's always been a hard time to be Black.
But my discipline, it's never been easy to be Black. But I'm saying my discipline, like to not go to my refrigerator. Okay, my discipline in trying to have consistency and working out. My consistency and not trying to patronize places that aren't respectful. It's a difficult thing because it's not yielding. You're constantly having to fight against a machine that is designed to completely indoctrinate you into that philosophy of thinking, that not that collective, there's no collective mentality in that. It's individualism, right? And the more that
but it's time to protect the children. It's time to protect our children, our youth, those to whom we are handing the baton. Right. I feel a real responsibility in saying, that's why I'm working with kids. I'm doing classes. I can't believe I'm back teaching again. Lord.
My kids are like, I don't want to drop the baton, but I don't know how to be like you.
my grandkids, they got pressure. I'm putting pressure on them. My nieces, nephews, I'm putting pressure on them.
Turn up the heat.
That's right. Come on now. I'm just thinking about, like I said, there wasn't an internet. There wasn't an internet, and like when you start looking at how things happen, how movements happen without a cell phone, right? And all I'm saying is we have the apparatus right here, and we need to collectively start thinking about our brain trust and what we need to do moving forward. This is regardless of whatever everybody else is saying. What do we need to begin to look at? Well, some of it is the same old problems we've always had. Based on COVID, based on this new situation, it's just floodlights are looking at the disparities. We've always had the disparities, right? And but here used to say this a long time ago, don't give somebody the keys to drive you crazy.
That is so true.
Don't give them the keys. You know what I'm saying?
That's one of my mantras. Yeah, you know, if you if you don't want to, you know, the way that you don't want to let someone drive you crazy, if you take away the keys, is what it is. But I do think that part of it also is it's like this: when you are depleted, when you are stressed, it's hard to strategize. It's hard to be creative. It's hard to feel connected, and that's something that we have to get back to in our community. That's part of the reason why we love this, is because one, we get to connect with folks who are thinking the same way. There's a lot more strength and more of us having these conversations. And I might just get people to be curious. Just be curious about, why would they do it this way? Why would they open these spots? Because I think that when you don't even have the curiosity to question what's being you know,
ask your own children, why do you think all the places you're gonna open first? I mean, we've got to start thinking about this in a way. And I understand, and again, let's be clear. If you've ever been hungry, they call it, I'm hangry. You know, say, I'm hangry. Because when you're hungry, you know, right now, if I get to the point where I'm too hungry and my husband's talking to me, I can't even hear him. I'm like, you know, I'm hungry. I'm ready to say, okay, whatever you, so long as I'm getting ready to eat. Because right now, that's how my brain does not work well when I'm hungry. And so at the same time, you're looking at the stressors that are on people that are hungry and don't know where the next meal is coming from. And on top of that, we are sheltered in place, and I'm trying to make certain that my children don't lose ground academically. I mean, there's a lot going on. And all I'm saying is to get in where you fit in, wherever you can help to do that, right? We all got to stretch a little bit more than maybe we're used to, right? And again, I'm at a point in my life, and I realize that I'm in a different space. So, you know, everyone knows that whenever you go through my course, the first thing I have you look at is you, right? So you look at where you are developmentally and where you should be. I'm 62 years old. I'm not raising small children. You know, I'm not looking for what my career is or where my life goals are. Done all that. I understand that. But if I am someone that has small children, and I don't know how I'm going to make it through this, who am I going to go to talk about that? Do I have a space? And I'm saying that I'm willing to create spaces where we can start having those conversations. That's why when I get off of this call, I have a class, I have all these different things that I'm doing, because I've got to do my part. I got to do what I believe.
Speaking of your part.
Correct.
Speaking of your part, how come you haven't been taking my dance class, Dr. Joy?
I'm going to take it this next time. When is it?
Tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? It's on Thursday?
It's on Thursdays, but tomorrow it's going to be earlier than it normally is. It's normally at 5.
I'm going to take it.
You say that, but I
said I want to take
Renee was on there. Uncle Gene was on there working it out. Anyway.
I told you I was on another call. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, you could. Prioritize your Joy. Prioritize your fitness, Dr. Joy. Listen, I was thinking about this the other day. Do you know that I'm going to be 44 this year?
Yes, I know. You've made me old. And all I can say to you is
you are old, but 44, you want to have a 44-year-old daughter. Speaking of revolution.
Almost 50.
You know what? I didn't get to say that though. Almost, well, guess what? Maybe I'll be J-Lo 50.
First of all, you're not the boss of me. You don't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. Yeah. You're not the boss of me. Okay, let's just be clear about that. So I will be part of the dance class. That's going to be Thursday. Now you said 100%. You said that people don't even put the camera on, right?
What? No, that's what happens with the introverts. The extroverts, they are on there. You know what I'm saying? Hey,
I'm gonna try.
Lovejoy's on here.
What do you have to wear?
Fitness attire. You can wear fitness attire.
Oh, okay. So
yes, I'm gonna put my link on here. You guys should join my class tomorrow. It's gonna be at 4 p.m. Pacific. It's very fun. It's Afrofusion. We have a great time, but it's free and it's really around connection. That's why I was mad people turn off their camera. It's not about being perfect. It's about being connected.
Okay. I have to be able to look at you because I won't know what I'm doing.
No, you have to put me as the main person. But I'm saying still let me see you. Exactly. Gene is on there. Gene was on the class. Uncle Gene was working it out yesterday. Oh, the link. I'm gonna put the link on here.
Put the link up there. I'll do it. No, I don't have no problem with it. I'm gonna try it.
Okay.
But I've been doing my little exercise at home. But still, we should be doing that too, because that's one of the other ways to really reduce stress, so that you don't want to put your hands on people, because people can make you mad. We don't want to go there. Let's just figure out how we can work through it. And again, get away from that refrigerator. You ain't hungry.
At least
You know you're not hungry. You're just bored. You don't have nothing to do. Stay away from the refrigerator. Because that's what happens. We get bored and we start eating. No, we got to start moving.
Nene is on here.
Who?
Nene? Renee?
And I see you, Melanie. I saw Jerome.
Yep, we saw some
we got some folks on. But I'm glad that people are checking in on each other, and making certain that folks are okay, because this is no joke. This is tough. This is getting tougher by the day. And like I was saying to you, Bahia, earlier, was that whole, I had never seen, they weren't showing the number of people that are in line for food baskets all over the country. I mean, we're talking about miles of cars that where folks are just trying to get, and people who are saying, I'd never believed it would get to this or would come to this, And like I said, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. And so that's why I think we need to let's start breaking down the areas, and the folks who are writing in the areas where the greatest need is. Well, number one, folks need to be able to deal with the very basic necessity of life. You need to have food and shelter. I mean, we folks need to have that. Those are categories that we need to figure out, how can we help. Now, we can't solve everything, but figure out where you can do the best good, the most for what your energy can bring to it. And so in terms of what we can do, Bahia is doing exercise stuff.
Well, also with the collaboration, that the idea is, I would like to challenge everybody who's on here to think about one person in your life who you can spark their curiosity to self-reflect and to reflect on what's happening. It doesn't mean that you have to become, that you have to preach to them, or you have to knock them down and be the hammer, as we often are in our family. But you can try to do something that will spark their curiosity and make them just sit and reflect. Or a young person, or an old person, who's not thinking about, who's saying, God got me, I don't need to worry about any of this. To say, yeah, God got you, but he also gave you a brain. So let's figure out how to critically think about things.
And again, there's that area where, again, it's not, I know a lot of folks that have very deep spiritual practices in their lives. And, it doesn't mean, that whole idea, trust in God, but tie your camel, again, the whole idea is not either or, it's and. There's a reason why, again, we have science. And if most people understood or studied religion, they'd understand that religion is the foundation of all the knowledge coming through, including the sciences. And if you have a problem with that, or you don't believe that, you just have to ask yourself, why is it, you have an Abraham, Moses, Christ, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, Zoroaster, the Baha'u'llah. These are all people who have shown up on the planet, these prophets or manifestations of God that have special names. They all came, lived, suffered, died, wrote books. And they didn't do all that so you could just sit at home and pray and everything was going to magically happen for you.
Right.
Okay, let's just do the math on that, So we realize that it's not either or, it's and. You're supposed to use the information that you learn, and you're supposed to advance civilization with that. And again, we have to take a look at, as people of color, we have to look at what is going on in this country. All the lights are on what's going on in this country right now. And if you wanted to go back to normal, because I don't think back to normal was a good place either. No. I think this is an opportunity for us to recognize that not everybody has our well-being, in mind when they show up and they want your vote or whatever else they're pushing out there. Do know, look at the little guy behind the curtain. Okay, you got to understand the little guy behind the curtain.
One of the things that Renee just surfaced also is something that we're all concerned about, because this is something that we were going to talk about next week. We could talk about it right now. One of the things that Renee just said was that one of the concerns about sheltering in place is being sheltering in place with a tyrant or somebody who is abusive to both yourself or your children. That's really dangerous. And I've been looking at a lot of memes lately. And I was talking to mom about this, where everything that is considered cultural for us isn't positive or healthy, right? So these like memes about like, I've been, when you have a black mama when you've been beat with everything in the house, or you got a black mama when she's telling you better sit down and be quiet, don't say nothing, don't ask for nothing, and it's become it's this kind of, but the level of harshness and it's funny because this is the curiosity. Somebody asked what should be the thing that we ask people to be curious about. So I think that there are two things that I want. You can add something too, Mom, if you want, but these are two things that I think. One, be curious about why they're talking about who they're opening the country up, who's going to be getting the opening up the country, the nation's opening of the economy. Be curious about why do you think that they pick these particular folks in these places, just so that people can start to spark their curiosity and for them to think critically about what the government is okay with doing to us. And the other thing is, be curious about where did these narratives come from. This goes back to post-traumatic with Dr. Joy and about these learned behaviors. I had a meeting with someone once who said to me, they were talking about my son's behavior at the time, which was questionable, but they said, I can tell you're not putting hands on him either. And I thought, good, but they're like, you should be putting hands on him because that's why there's people in jail right now. And I said, I'm curious why you would say that, because you're suggesting that if you put hands on them, they won't go to jail. Everybody I know who went to jail has had hands put on them. Everybody. I've never been to jail. I've never had hands put on me, right? The idea that we are kind of biting this stuff that's supposed to be cultural, that's really been harmful to us. And to start to push people's curiosity about how to engage their kids in a different way than we have. That's what I'm thinking.
And I think we have to be curious about what we've normalized as what a Black mother is, what a Black father is, what Black people are, which is often equated with really great things, but it's also equated with some crazy stuff, right? So let me kind of express this one, which was something I never even thought about. When I grew up, my mother and father are both from Louisiana. And I remember that, my mother, if there were a couple of things you couldn't do. One, you could not pull up and blow for anyone in the house. You can't blow the horn. If you blew the horn, it's done. Nobody's coming out. You ain't picking up nobody. That's not happening because you don't blow the horn for anybody. My mother had a thing about that. People blow horns for prostitutes. I don't know what she had going on in her head, but I would tell people, if you're coming to get me, do not blow the horn. That's not going to happen.
All right, I said the same thing. I can't go.
And it might have had something to do with experience my mother had. I don't know. All I knew was that was a rule. Other rules she made. Don't walk out the house eating, right? There was no such thing as walk out the house eating. So let's fast forward. This is how I grew up. I didn't ask my mother. My mother just said, don't walk out the door eating. This all came up when we were in Georgia, at my home in Georgia. My husband and I were talking, and he has this sign that I had at the house. I put it somewhere. I didn't even know what I did with it, but there it was, framed, no colored seating. And he said, God, this is a powerful, moment from our history. And I said, well, let me tell you a little bit about that history. Something I didn't know. My mother passed away. My mother died in 1988. And there were a lot of questions I had that I never got to ask her. But, when I raised my children partially based on how my mother had raised me. And some things I didn't carry forward. But one of the things I carried forward is don't walk out the house eating. Well, this one here, one day, I told her,
where are you pointing at? Nobody can see your finger.
To the one you're looking at, her. Anyway, what had happened was, I told her, don't go out the house eating. And she turned around and looked at me and went, why not? And then she went on to say, there are cafes outside, there are coffee shops outside. She started naming all these different ways. People have barbecues outside. And I was like, just don't do it. She goes, why? I said, because I said so. Don't do it, right? And then I stopped. I'm not quite that kind of person, but I got in my feelings a little bit because I really didn't have an answer. And then one day I was actually doing a talk, and we were in Chicago. I remember this. And after I explained that about how my mother would say, "Don't go out go out the house eating," this man waited for me. One of the participants in the audience, he said, "I just wanted to offer for you a reason why your mother may have said that to you." And he asked me how old my mother would be. And he says, "Well, that's how old I am." He says, "And I grew up in Louisiana, so I know what life was like for your mother in New Orleans during that time." And he said, there were plenty of restaurants where, first of all, often you couldn't even come in the front door. You'd have to go around to the back. He said, but some of them, you could come in through the front door, but you'd have to take your food out because there's no seating for colored people. There was no seating for Negroes. So my mother, he says, maybe what your mother felt every time she saw you walk through the door, look, you don't have to, you can sit down and eat. You can sit down and eat now. Sit down and finish what you're eating and then go out the door. But he said maybe it triggered the memory of the humiliation she felt when she had to take her food out. Now, I want to unpack that for you because I don't have my mother here to talk about that, but that makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. So now I don't have the energy, which was the energy my mother gave me. Just don't walk out the door eating. I don't know. What are you going to, turn into something? I didn't know. All I knew was that was what my mother told me. And again, it's not, I don't think it would harm my children or harm my grandchildren to not eat going out the door. But I think it's much more powerful for them to understand why their great grandmother didn't allow that.
Right.
And then now they have this sign. I said, these were the signs your great grandmother used to have to see. And it gives them context, right? And at the same time, they don't have to feel trepidation in their heart because they happen to be walking out the door.
Or something bad's going to happen.
Or something bad is going to happen. Without knowledge, it's superstition. Without understanding, you're passing along behaviors that may be innocuous, but may not. So why should every single one of my children feel trepidation in their heart because they're eating a sandwich, So again, I didn't know that. And I still don't. I mean, I don't know that, but given what this man said to me and knowing my mom, I went, that makes a lot of sense. And now I can actually tell that story, and it can be something that can inform how important it is for us to question.
But you're curious. You were curious after you had the indignation.
Right. After I had the indignation, I was curious. And I was open enough, honestly, because it's hard, and nobody likes being wrong, and we're all often wrong. And but I think it's really instructive that when you learn something, and people know this about me too, when I learn something, I will incorporate it, and I will educate both myself and anyone else. Guess what I just found out? It's like when Bahia told me, I remember she was talking about sudden infant death. And SIDS, right? Because I grew up, and anybody who was on this call, if you are 60 and above and you were babysitting children, say when you were 12 or 13, when you put the baby to sleep, how did you put the baby down? And the majority of people are going to say on their stomach. Why? Here's a theory, because the kid's going to choke if they're on their back. A cat's going to suck the mouth and they'll not stop breathing because the cat will smell the milk. We got all kind of reasons for that. Now, when my daughter told me about the fact that you could reduce SIDS by 70% by simply putting a child on their side or on their back, I'm hearing new information. But I am feeling the way I felt when I was babysitting, that the baby was going to choke, even though my rational mind knows that while a child is breastfeeding, they can actually drink the whole at the same time, all of that. Babies have the ability to actually be nursed and not breathing, interrupted breathing, all of that stuff happens. I know that. I've had children, yet still in my upbringing, don't you put that baby on their back. Don't you put, those words are in my head. But I got to the point where I went, not only did I learn it, understand it, but I helped other people who maybe were like me, that were so accustomed, who were so warned, don't you ever put that baby on their back, that you have to start realizing that we have to work through some of that information that's just not, it's not correct and it's not relevant. And at the same time, I'm not going to yell at anybody. I'm not going to try to make them feel badly, but I'm going to say, there's information now.
Gene said when Kathy was born, Auntie Kathy was born, his mom got rid of the cat. The idea that the cats will steal your breath, right? Something around that, like some.
But there's also something else about cats, and it has to do with cats' feces, which are very dangerous.
Right.
So there are a lot of stuff, but again, we try to find a reason why we do the stuff that we do, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense, right? And just because, like I said, Big Mama did it doesn't mean it makes sense. Okay. And just because grandpa said it doesn't mean it was accurate, right? So again, I don't have that issue with my kids and grandkids because they all fact check me. They will Google me in a minute, right?
My kids are the worst. They are the worst fact checkers.
But I think that's wonderful. I think that, not that they doubt you, but at the same time,
they doubt me.
Well, again, I've learned quite a bit from my grandchildren, quite a bit, all of them. It's amazing how much more they know. And again, this is why we need family. This is why we need generations. Why we need grandma and auntie and cousin and JoJo and and we need everybody. And I think that I loved the richness of that extended family. And I've always loved that. And right now we're an extended family. We're an extended family, and we touch base, like I told you the class that we're doing, but he is part of the class. My nephew who lives in Hawaii is part of teaching the class. My son, other son, and Nadim in Portland, he's part of the class. And there are young people from around the country that are part of this class because we realized there was a need. And my grandkids are part of this class, right? Because there's reading material. They have a syllabus. I don't play. We're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. And I want to also get you in the practice of understanding what college looks like, where nobody's going to hold your hand. You need to read the material, or else you're not going to be able to participate in the discussion, right? So everybody's reading the materials of the packet that I gave them so that they could be a part of the conversation. Even if they're not voicing it, they're in touch with what's going on. And again, it could be anything.
But
there's so much.
Freeconferencecall.com. There's a couple free resources that if you don't have internet connection, you can still do phone. And I know our family was doing prayer calls together at noon. We did it for over a month. And it was wonderful because it was just hearing different people pop in and hearing their voices and knowing who's speaking was really a source of connection for all of us. My kids loved it. Connect to family members we don't talk to as often. So there's a lot of creative ways that we can, kind of.
Claudia Helton said one thing is that we want parents to be curious about is why they are triggered to the point of physical abuse.
Yeah.
Again, that's really, really important. It's like, I can remember when, I don't remember which one of my kids, but they were little and they were just crying and upset. And I said, well, what's wrong? And they went, I don't know. I don't know. Right. And they were just crying and upset, but couldn't get a grip on why. There was so much going on inside of them that they didn't understand. And sometimes they don't. They go, I don't know why I'm upset. I'm going, okay, that's real. I got to appreciate that. You can't tell me because you don't know. And at the same time, I think when we're triggered to the point where we want to be violent, that bears really looking at. That really bears looking at, because you've got 9 times out of 10, there's a lot going on with that. And there's some history around why a person feels triggered and what that's about. But if you're triggered, and my dad used to say this, like I told you, none of us were hit as children. My siblings, we weren't hit. My father would not allow it. And my father would always say, he says, there's really something wrong if you're a grown man and you feel like you got to hit a 4-year-old. You a grown man and you got to hit.
Some of it is not even. Some of it is knee jerk, right? That you're so triggered, but some of it is just training, right? I had a
Yes.
client a couple of years, well, more than a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. I was working as a child and family therapist, and I had a woman I was working with who she felt like she confided in me that she was hitting her child because, even when you have a case with DHS, Human Services, you're not supposed to engage in any kind of corporal punishment, right? And so she said, well, I can tell you that I hit my kid because I know you won't think that I'm an abuser. And she said this to me because I'm Black, right? Now, I've never had a spanking in my life. And I've never struck my kids. So it definitely, it hit me in a different way. My daughter said it hits different, right? It hit different. But I didn't want to lose the opportunity of building relationship with this woman. And at the same time, I wanted to pique her curiosity about why that is. So we're talking and I said, yeah, I know you're not an abuser. I know you love your kids. So can you tell me about it? When you usually are hit them, when do you find that you usually, hit your kids? And she said, really, it's only when they do something that's really dangerous. If they run out in the street and they do something, they jump on something or they climb off something, I'm just like, you don't do that. You don't do that. So I want them to remember it because it's dangerous. And I said, okay. So we talked for a little while. And I said, I was just thinking that, if I was across the street and I saw you and I was like, oh my gosh, hi. And I start to run across the street to say hi. And then a truck comes, right past me. And I'm like, oh my God, I get across the street to you. And I'm like, oh, did you see that? I almost smacked me. I said, I would be traumatized. I'm grown, right? I would be like, I was already scared because the car, almost hit me. And then I come to you to express to you how scary it was. And you slapped me. And so I just think about that sometimes. Like, I'm a grown person and it would really impact me. And I think about my kids and how scared they must be. And I just got to think about how I react because, they're people too. And she's like, yeah, I never thought about that. But I can see it was going on in her mind. Be like, yeah, that would be scary. Yeah, I wouldn't want someone to smack me if I did something that I almost got hurt myself or I did hurt myself. And so we just talked about everything else.
Now you get traumatized twice. You get traumatized by the incident, and then you sweat.
So I saw her about 5 years later it was like a public swim. I didn't actually know where I knew her from until I saw her daughter. I was like, oh, how's your daughter doing? How's everything going? She's like, it's good. I have everybody back off paper completely. She's like, I just wanted to let you know that I never hit my daughter after we had that conversation. I never spanked them again. And I think part of what we have to do when we're sparking people's curiosities, they'll figure out for themselves what's the healthiest, best thing for them to do. But if we just tell them what to do, or we tell them our reasoning for why they should stop doing something, it tends to fall on deaf ears. And we're saying it in a way like, I know and you know not. And our our community is very hypersensitive to you being condescending with them. So I think any way that we can, and so I would say to you said it, Claudia said this, I think, or Melanie. Yeah. The whole idea of sparking people's curiosity. Renee said too, like, how does this benefit you, or what do you think the benefit is, or what is the story that you tell yourself about what that means, or what will happen if you don't? Like being curious about, why do I believe that I have to do this way? And that's with all the things we've been talking about today. I think just being curious, what's happening to your screen? Something's happening with your face.
I've done nothing different. If I look crazy, it's not my fault right now.
It's pixelated. It's doing something weird.
Well, it's 6:30 for one thing, but aside from that, I know we spend a lot of time, but honestly, I'm looking at what's going on. I want us to be current in terms of the conversations we're having. We have things that we want to talk about. I had to bring out what the tobacco industry is doing. I had to bring out what a lot of the southern states are who they're opening up businesses, because they're gonna sit and watch. They're gonna watch. They go, oh wow, because again, if you just look at the narrative about Black people, we're constantly being told there are too many of us. We got to close our borders to people of color. There's such crazy, irrational, insane pathology around this fear of people of color and America. It's huge, and if you don't see it now, you're going to even see it even more as we stay in this whole idea of sheltering in place. And again, I don't know where that's taking us, but I'm telling you all right now, I'm going to have to wait and see. I'm not I'm gonna have to wait and see. And I'm gonna also be talking to the folks I know that are epidemiologists, because I know epidemiologists. I'm going to be reaching out to folks that I trust about what they're saying. Not, it's like when we said we weren't going to talk about Kanye. It's like there's I'm not talking about Kanye, right? But why are we talking about Kanye? About, I wouldn't call him for some sort of a read on architecture either. So it's something that we have to start. We have to start asking questions, and more important questions. Things are going on right now, and yesterday, I was tore up when I was looking at just it's not, they're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide it. We have some history as people of African descent, in terms of what they would do to go hunt, and what they would do with black babies, and what they would do. I mean, it's just horrible things that we have been used for historically. And again, we have to look at what's going on in our communities. There are communities across the country that are going, we're getting ready to start trying to reach out to folks about, we know that children lose, through summer. They go through summer and they come back, and there's some academic loss for some students. I have a lot of theories about why that's true, by the way. It has nothing to do with the kids' capacity, right? But again, that's part of the 10-week course, where I'm talking about the fact that our kids retain information differently, and all people retain information that is consistent with their particular values and culture. And I'm saying that we're taught in a way that for white children, when they go home, it's consistent with the institutions that they've been made familiar with that dominate everything. And there's consistency. It's not consistency with natives and Latinx folks or black folks. Some of them maybe, but largely education is out of sync with reality, period. Some of the stuff that's going, that I'm looking at kids, they're getting no skills in terms of living and surviving and moving practically. But what I'm saying is, you begin to look at some of the things that we've taken on, some of the things that we have to question, and some things we just got to try right now. Like I said, I'm in my garden. I was just thinking about, because I grow things from seeds. I have seeds, I collect seeds, organic, as much stuff as I can, but I'm learning a little bit about that. I could teach folks that are interested in growing food, and not a lot. You don't have to have a big thing of land. You could get a box.
I'm trying to have an herb garden, trying to figure out some ways to have some good fresh herbs.
You could really have an herb garden easily.
I know. I'm just trying to figure. I'm gonna get my kid out there getting some things taken care of. But
I can help with that.
A couple people have.
We can learn how to make our own masks. That's the other thing.
Oh, that's the thing. Somebody, people are making money off that, though. I'm trying to support folks who are doing that. But a couple people have mentioned the fact that that part of the triggering for kids, especially disrespecting them, or they feeling they're disrespected, is because of how disrespected they are by other people, by systems, by white people, and so that they take that out on the kid. And I actually saw that it was Richard Pryor was talking about going out with his girlfriend once, and the police, filling them up and doing weird stuff to him. And he was like, you can't go out after that. All you can do then is go home and beat your kids. And the whole idea of that sense of power, and what you go do, if you are being completely disempowered, then can you have power over? And then you have power over these kids. And so I think part of it is not only just being curious about why that is, but figuring out how to decompress yourself before you act. That's part of it is too, is what do you need to do? What kind of time out or breathing or space do you need to take so that you can bring it all the way back down? And that's even true for me in terms of my volume, right? My kids have pointed out, like, and I'm calling them. They're like, we always think we're in trouble because of how loud you are. So I've just been trying to, adjust even my tone, because it's creating a certain level of anxiety. Even if I'm irritated by something, I can figure out how to sit for a second and then say, okay, can you come here for a second? I want to talk to you about something, instead of saying, hey, what's going on? Why is this happening? What's going on here? It's like I said, we're not, no one here, we're not on this even because we're experts in life. We're just trying to create a space where we can have conversations and learn from each other. And so we're really happy that you joined us. And we were somebody said, hurt people, hurt others, hurt people, hurt people.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah.
But again, what I want you to do is spread the information.
Right.
Start taking a look at, again, begin to become curious about why things are opening, where, when, and who is it that it's being identified. And we need to literally educate our children, particularly children of color, to not be the fodder for these industries and these corporations that don't care anything about them, that literally don't care about them, and have an investment in them dying.
Right.
You know, you just have to know that, and it's an unfortunate reality. You cannot talk about the tobacco industry in any way and not know that they don't have a problem killing people, because
Right.
they
Right.
know that that's what it does. And
Right.
again, you get people hooked who are already have, broken parts here and there, or who are so young that they get dazzled by the colors and the flavors.
Right.
We've got to, as adults, step into that and say, I can't be there for you when you make that decision with your friends, but I
Right.
just want you to know who's controlling you. I need you to know who these folks are. So you're gonna do this with knowledge. And
Right.
here is how you're going to contribute to the injury of yourself and other people that look like you. I mean, we've got to start bringing this to the attention of young people who, once you're hooked, it's, there, you don't have that same room. But they
Right.
need to know that they're being targeted. They need to know that they're looking at them as reasonable collateral damage. They
Mm-hmm.
don't care. And it's true. I'm not just saying that because I am in my feelings. I'm saying that because they have generations of people that they've killed. The
Right.
tobacco industry knew. They had better scientists than anyone. They knew what tobacco did,
Right.
and they did it anyway. And then after they said you can no longer, and all the lawsuits and the litigation, they found a clause, and now they are promoting tobacco products again.
Yeah. No.
And nobody asked why.
Mm-hmm.
How, remember, there was no, you didn't see any advertisements for any tobacco, because
Right.
we know what it does. So just ask yourself, be curious about why it's suddenly okay, and then start looking at who they're targeting. They're
And
targeting
yeah.
children of color, children, period, young people, period. But across the board, they've said who it is. Remember, they
Right.
named Black people.
Right.
They named us,
And
right? So again,
can you put a link, if you have the link of that? Can you put that in the comments for people? The link to that. I think you found the article or whatever.
yeah, well, it's on regular television. On the advertisements, they'll show you the quotation that they found from internal memos
It's
that
from
who were targeted.
the anti tobacco, right? The anti tobacco
Yeah,
people.
but if it just put it in there, tobacco industry is targeting Black people, stupid people, poor people, and it'll pop up. But
Yeah.
again, like I said, I'm going to have to sit down and talk to not just Bahia, she's grown, but she has to talk to her children about
Right.
this reality, that you
Right.
love yourself enough not to be manipulated by that.
Right.
We owe it to our ancestors. We can't keep doing dumb stuff. Okay.
So,
That's what I'm saying.
so we have to get off here. We've been on here too long. But I will say,
Okay.
we're leaving. But I will say to folks who are struggling, I know Colleen mentioned too that she's, what do you do with these teachers who are really pushing the aggressive schedules? And really, I think it is to find out, to ask them, what is the balance in what I can support my kids in their learning? So I don't know if I can commit to the schedule. I have to work, I have to do other things, but I do want to make sure that I'm supporting their learning. So if if it's reading, how much time should they be reading? If it's math, what are a couple of math worksheets, places I can get resources from that I can have on my own schedule? And then just, give yourself some grace, because none of us, unless you were already a teacher, we didn't sign up to be teachers. So it's a little bit daunting. So give yourself some grace, and see if you can figure out a way that you can target their learning without having to be just completely chained to this schedule.
Sure.
That's my recommendation. So that's what I'm doing.
Right.
So,
I'm going to be doing some work with parents around just learning how to sit down to just talk to their kids. I mean, there's just a lot of learning, and like, again, in the midst of this crisis, there's a lot of positive opportunities we have right now. I really believe that, because I know I've strengthened relationships with members of my family I haven't seen in years. Things are happening, and it's a matter of how you deal with it, because trust me, we've dealt with much worse. and this too shall pass, but we need all hands on deck. I'm just saying, everybody has something that they can do in terms of passing along the information and the knowledge. Whatever I learn, I'm going to share it here. So I appreciate you all coming on, listening, paying attention, but please reach out to someone else. If any of it has been of benefit, if you know something that can be helpful, please pass along the knowledge and the information. Love you all fiercely. Take care.
All right, bye. Take care. Be well. Be the
Be well.
healing. See y'all later.